Alright, so now we're going to get started on my pizza sauce. So, a lot of people use tomato paste, and tomato paste is honestly not something that I keep stocked very much. I don't know, to me it's pretty useless, unless like I have a recipe that, you know, I really want to save time. Sometimes I'll get it, but in general, you really don't need it, and it's just so much better just to do it the way that I'm going to do it here. I find that your flavors are so much better. So, okay, tomate broye, so it's on the front side. Alright, so we're going to start off with crushed tomatoes, okay? Now, everyone should have a submersible blender in their kitchen, okay? If you don't, get one. Because if you're stuck, because I always buy canned tomatoes when they go on sale, like, because these big 28-ounce cans will go on sale for like 50 cents or under $1. As soon as that happens, I buy a pile of them. Okay, and obviously they're not always crushed tomatoes. Some of them are diced, some of them have spices, some of them don't. I try to buy a variety of everything, okay? The best to make your sauce is with the crushed tomatoes, but if you don't have them and you just have like diced tomatoes, which I have, you know, up here, then put them in your pot, take your submersible blender, and blend them until they're just fully crushed. They won't be thick like this, they'll be a little bit waterier. The only thing is you'll just have to cook it down a little bit longer when you're cooking it, that's all. So that's what we're going to put in the pot here. Okay, so literally what I did is I took this recipe and I took an original recipe with tomato paste, and then I changed it to suit my needs, which is how, you know, anyone should do a recipe, obviously. So the recipe in itself called for tomato paste and then water, okay? When you add those together, it literally gets the consistency of this, or tiny bit thicker probably. So it's exactly the same thing. So you don't have to worry about that. And then I changed a few things around because obviously, you know, I like a sauce that is a little bit spicy, a little bit sweet. So it took me a long time of experimenting to get it to the point that I could make a pizza that was as good, if not better, than most pizzas that I've bought at the store. Actually, honestly, my pizza tastes better than most pizzas I've bought at the store, including a nice crispy crust. But again, that was with practice. So, you start off with this. And then, the recipe calls for Parmesan. I do not have any Parmesan in the house, unfortunately. So, you can cut that out. But if you want to add it, add 3 tablespoons, or actually, with a 28-ounce can, like this, in Canada it's 796 mils. You would add 6 tablespoons of Parmesan cheese, okay? Because the recipe itself would be, that I originally took, was for 12 ounces. And with this, it's a 24-ounce can. So I doubled everything. So, for the spices, okay? You have 2 teaspoons of garlic powder. And then you have 1.5 teaspoons of onion powder. You have a 1/4 teaspoon of pepper. Now, it calls for oregano. I was out of oregano, but I had pizza spices, which contains it. So this is a teaspoon of oregano, of pizza spice, but you can just use oregano. It'll give exact same. And this is 1/2 teaspoon of marjoram, 1/2 teaspoon of basil. Now, it calls for a 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne. I didn't have any, so I used chipotle chili pepper, smoked. So it's really good. I really enjoy it. So it gives it kind of a smoked flavor. And then a 1/4 teaspoon of dried red pepper. And then later on, we will add salt to taste. So I'm going to put all of this in here. Put all your spices in. Now, it also calls for anchovy paste, which, if you have it, use it. Oh my god, the flavor. Now, I use something really weird here, but I put a few splashes of fish sauce so I at least get a tiny, you know, fish flavor. Obviously, Sebi, never let me feed this to you, okay? If I'm gonna make you pizza, you remind me not to put this shit in there, okay? Sebastian is allergic to fish. So, the other thing that we're gonna put in is 2 tablespoons of honey. Now, this is honey that my mom gifted me. It's local. Somebody, the next town over, actually raises their own bees and then sells the honey. So it's really good. You can taste the strawberry plant on this. So I always start with 2 tablespoons. Later on, when I salt, because I salt everything once it's simmered down, at that point I'll see if it's sweet enough for me. It usually is. Sometimes I want a little bit more sweetness. Alright. Now I'm going to mix everything, and I'm going to put this on to like about, because I want it to start simmering. Once it simmers, I will lower it down. Like once it starts boiling a little bit, then I'm going to lower it down. Like it's already like a beautiful sauce, but I'm gonna cook it to concentrate the flavors. It's a little bit more work, but honestly I find that it does such a huge difference in your sauce. I could just leave it there, you know, while I'm doing other stuff without boiling and just let the flavors absorb, but I like the kick of heat to help it. There you go. Alright, so I'm going to lower this a little bit more. That should be low enough. And we're going to let this simmer. I usually simmer it for like half an hour to even an hour, but I always come back and stir it and keep an eye on it, because if it gets too thick, I will take it off the heat. Alright, so I'm just showing you here. I have yeast already out because I had another bottle that was in plastic that shattered when I dropped it. So I'm just showing this so you can see. What I do is I buy yeast in bulk, okay? Like the big square packages, and then I fill it in a mason jar, and then I put it in the freezer. You keep it there, and then just when I want to make bread, I'll take some of the yeast out, I'll measure it out, and then I'll let it get to room temperature before I use it. Just that way it's a lot cheaper than just, you know, using the little packets and things like that. If you're going to make any amount of bread, definitely buy your large packet of yeast. Alright, so we're going to start off by putting the yeast in here. So it calls for a packet in the recipe, and a packet of yeast is 2.5 teaspoons of yeast. Okay, now the other thing it calls for is 1 teaspoon of sugar. Now this is Bobby Flay's recipe, and I absolutely love it. It's, you know, it's Bobby Flay for one. You kind of can't go wrong with his recipes, but I am changing it slightly. Alright, so 1 teaspoon of honey. Alright, so I measured out 1.5 cups here of lukewarm water. So it's the same as when you're making baby bottles. You put the water on your wrist, and when you don't feel it, that's lukewarm. Then we're going to put this in with the yeast. Now we're going to let this bloom. Again, cover your yeast, stick that in the freezer. And we're going to let the yeast bloom for 15 minutes, okay? And then I'll come back and you'll see how the yeast is going to be nice and expanded. That shows you that your yeast is alive, and it is ready to work. Alright, so as you can see, just going to jiggle it a little bit. So it's bloomed. If you're using fresher yeast, you might even get a bigger bloom than this, but mine is a little bit older. It's still going to work. It's still good. Like, I don't know if you can see. It's hard to see, but like it's kind of like raised off of it too. It's beautiful. Now, we are going to add the flour and the salt to this. Always mix the salt in with the flour because salt reacts with the yeast and it inhibits the growth of the yeast, I find. So like never put it in when you're blooming. Wait and mix it in with your flour, okay? And it says 3.5 to 4 cups of flour. Now that is for a recipe with white flour. So most of the time you need a lot less if you're going to use whole wheat flour. So what I do is I'm going to use a second bowl here. I'm going to measure everything out. I'm going to add the salt to it. And then I'm going to slowly add it until I get the right consistency that I'm happy with in here. And I will show you all of that. Alright, so as you can see, I've just mixed the 4 cups of flour with the salt. So I'm just going to mix this all up here. Good mix. Honestly, I'm probably not going to need to use all of this flour here, so. Now, here we have my yeast flour. I'm just going to move it a little bit closer here. And I'm going to add it 1/2 cup at a time because you want it to get to that right texture and you don't want to have too many lumps. So I'm going to start with this. Scrape the sides as well as you go. One day I will have a Cuisinart, so I won't need to do this. But for now, we do things the old way. Which, I mean, is not wrong. I've been doing it for years. My mother, my grandmother, they both taught me how to do this stuff, so. Alright, so that was 1/2 cup. Alright, and now this is another 1/2 cup, so this is 1 cup that we're putting in here. This is pretty mixed up again, so another 1/2 cup. So this is 1.5 cups. See, now you're starting to see it. So now another 1/2 cup. This is 2 cups. Now this is 3. Alright. So it's getting to be the right texture now. I'm going to put flour on my fingers so it doesn't stick. Tiny bit of flour up here. Here, you want to take this? So we're going to knead it, but only lightly. Whole wheat flour, you shouldn't beat as much as, you know, white flour. Put some love into your dough. Actually, when you're making bread, well, you do put some love into it, but in general, you can put your frustration out in it because you want to put some weight into it. So you want to knead it until it's nice and smooth, which is what's happening right now. Like, it's beautiful right now. Like, can you see this? It's like beautiful, smooth. You're still getting a slightly sticky consistency, but it's not like sticking to your finger, okay? That's the kind of consistency you want. If you go too dry, it's not gonna be nice. Like this front here had more flour in it, so like it's not, but I still have a little bit of stick to this, but not like, it's not pulling back. Well, this little spot here kind of pulled back a little bit of my hand, but not much, okay? So that is our dough. So now we're going to oil a bowl. So you can see the oil here, spread it over, put your dough in, roll it into that oil as well. So it's all covered in oil. All right, and now you're going to cover this with a clean cloth or plastic wrap, whatever you have available that works best. So I have a pillowcase that is clean, and now you're going to put this somewhere that's warm, okay? Us, it's usually in the reptile room, which is hubby's office, because obviously it's a little bit warmer in there because we have a few reptiles in there that have heat lights, so it keeps everything hot. So we're going to let this go for an hour, and then we will be good to go to start prepping the crusts. Alright, so as you can see, the dough about doubled in size. We only waited half an hour because we're both starving, and I mean, you don't need it to rise that much. Still, the leftover flour, as you can see, I didn't use all 4 cups. And so now this is the sauce, as you can see, nice and thick. Now I'm going to add salt until it is to my taste. Alright. That's me and Martina playing. She actually went to my high school. She graduated a year or 2 before me, actually. Alright. So, again, I don't measure salt. Science, I just put it in my hand and see what looks good, and then I taste. So, that's the salt. Ow! Because you mainly just want it to make your, like, accent your flavor. It's to accentuate your flavor. It's not, you know, a lot of people just go way overboard with salt. I want a tiny bit more salt. I might also add a little bit of honey. We're gonna see. A little bit more honey. Now for the honey right now, I'm just gonna eyeball it because all my teaspoons and stuff are dirty. But honestly, it's not a big deal for me. Like, I don't measure a lot in my cooking. I'm doing it now so that you guys can see what I got. So this would be about a teaspoon of honey. just a tiny bit more salt. And this will be perfect. And it's got a little bit of heat from everything that I put in previously, so that's really nice. Perfect. Oh my god, this is really good. Oh. Okay. So I'm going to preheat my oven to 350. There's one of my pans here. Alright, Al. Where's the other pan? Huh? Where's the other pan?
That one in the fridge.
Oh, that one's gonna have to be washed too. Love you. Alright, so first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take this dough. I just kind of punch it lightly to take some of the air out, but it's not really needed. So as you can see, we're gonna cut this in half with my dough cutter. And now, I'm gonna put the other one in here for now. A sheet pan here. And you're gonna oil the pan just lightly. Alright, now we're gonna start from here with my rolling pin. Pull it down. Obviously this is, as much as we can, a thin crust. It keeps dragging some of it here. I'm pressing this flat and pushing some of the dough over here so that my pin can grab it. There we go. Seriously. Okay, this doesn't usually happen. For some reason, it's pinching my dough. So one of my first jobs that wasn't dishwashing or babysitting, because I've been babysitting since I was 12 years old, was actually working at a Pizza Shack. So I learned a few things. Alright. So this is my dough fork. There's a little bit of dough stuck on it. But so now we're going to go ahead all around this. And we're going to double. This is just so that your dough doesn't rise too much. Only the edges will really rise. So we're going to put this in the oven for 7 minutes to pre-cook. That's the trick to the perfect crust, okay? Always pre-cook your crusts. The dough itself, you can freeze it fully done, or even if you want, you can pre-cook them like I'm doing now and then freeze them in the oven so you have like a pile of these ready. All you have to do then is take them out, put your sauce and everything on, stick them right in the oven. But 7 minutes. So the second pizza crust is in the oven, and Al's over there grating some cheese for me. So this one just came out, so I'm gonna start prepping this one for cooking. So I'm just gonna put a little bit of sauce, spread Spread it around. Looks so beautiful. So I want, you know, like a nice amount of sauce, but obviously I don't want, you know, too thick. Okay, you're gonna be hearing the dog whining because our dog is obsessed with cheese, and as soon as any of us are dealing with cheese, she starts whining. Just a warning. Alright. So now Al already prepped the vegetables for me. That's like his job in the house when we're making pizza. So I'm gonna put some onions on here. We love onions in this house. Alright. You know what? You're probably gonna have to chop some more because I put almost all those onions on this. Peppers will be fine though. No, actually I think we'll be good. Yeah. I tend to go crazy on onions. Alright, now I tend to go with canned mushrooms when they go cheap on sale. Just put a few in there. Alright, and now I have some ham here. I bought I usually buy like pizza packs for meat when it's on sale, but in general I usually prefer to just put ham on my pizza, so for this one it'll just be ham. Now another thing I could technically put on this, which is weird but I enjoy it, is a little bit of sauerkraut, but I'm not going to do this time. Usually as well I use part skim mozzarella, but they were out of that kind that was on sale, because I usually buy my cheese on sale. So alright, so this is gonna go in the oven for another 12 minutes. As you can see. Yeah. Alright, so you just want to slide that onto the board for me, and then I'll cut. That's married life teamwork for you folks. Okay, so this pizza is done. It's beautiful, actually. Yep. So nothing here burnt. Like you can see, kind of like it's dark here, but nothing actually burnt, which is great. So I'm gonna cut this in half. I only have about 10 minutes before I gotta work, so pretty much I'm bringing this upstairs, letting it cool, and I'm gonna eat it. Not all of this, obviously. So this is how I make my perfect pizza. And obviously the toppings all go from what you specifically like. Mine changes depending on what we have in stock.